Yeah.
Okay. I'm not in my normal studio, though. Gosh. All right.
I'm not in my normal studio. I'm at work actually, but I blocked off my office. I'm like, y'all can't come in here.
That's right. Hopefully your boss doesn't care.
He doesn't know. It's fine.
There you go. There you go. All right. Awesome. So today we are joined by Sharon Pace, someone who holds a special place in my heart. Sharon, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I can't wait to get into this.
This is so fun. Okay, let me pause. I'm going to redo it. Whatever is dinging on your end, do we have the ability to stop that? It sounds like maybe an email.
Oh, let me turn my email off. Hold on. Let me just close everything out.
I know. I'm always like, okay, let me close everything that makes noise.
Microsoft Teams is another one that they have up here.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. I think I've got everything turned off now.
Okay. Awesome. So I'll just restart that just so we're square. Editors will just redo it over. Okay.
Yeah. Oh. I want to make sure my phone doesn't end up ringing in here.
That's awesome.
I can fix it. I just need to turn. I'm going to unplug it. That way it doesn't go off. There. Fix that real quick. All right.
That is awesome.
We're ready now.
Let's go. So today we are joined by Sharon Pace. And Sharon, before we dive in, I just want to say thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
This is going to be a really, I think, important conversation. I'm excited to dive in with you. First, before we go further, tell our audience a little bit about who you are and where you live.
So I'm Sharon Pace, and I am a real estate investor. I also work in the medical field currently. Been in healthcare for about over 30 years, but in my current role for 18. But I invest in Galveston. I live about 30 minutes from Galveston. I won't say that that's the only place I ever want to invest, but that's where we started. When I say we, my husband and I, in fact, my late husband and I, started investing in 2020. We started flipping at that point, and we flipped a few homes before we started holding for short-term rentals, and kind of just dove into short-term rentals. I didn't really have any training other than I had followed a healthcare professional in real estate investing and watched what he was doing. Alex Sabio, I don't know if you know who he is, but I followed him and I got started that way. And so we got that first house and it did really well. And so then we kept buying short-term rentals. And really what we did is do the BRRRR process. We would buy them, rehab them, and then design them, furnish them, and have them as short-term rentals. So the first one I did sell in 2022. But now I have 4 right now on the island currently.
Amazing.
Yeah. So good start.
Talk to us about when everything shifted for you, because I know you mentioned you and your husband started this in 2020. Mm-hmm. There was a moment where life kind of turned upside down for you. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so really the reason why we started doing this was in 2020, he had lost his job. He had just had an open heart surgery. He had open heart surgery actually back in 2012 to where he hit a mitral valve prolapse that needed to be repaired. And so we got that done, and then life went on. He started working again, and then in 2019, we found out that had busted, and I had no idea that could even happen. And so I'm like, you got to have open heart surgery again? And he's like, yep. And so we start the process of going into open heart surgery. They're doing tests, and then his blood work came back off. His white blood cell count was too low or too high. I can't remember, but anyway, it led into us needing more tests done. So they stopped the open heart surgery and said, we got to figure out what's going on. So we found out at that point through many tests that he had liver cancer. And so start going to the hepatology, and then they said, well, we have to get his heart fixed, and then we'll work on the liver after we get the heart fixed, because he needed his liver to heal from the heart surgery while it was still good enough to heal. And so we went through the heart surgery, and it was hard. It was a hard recovery. But he recovered, and then he started back to work, probably a little too soon. And was going through liver treatments, but COVID hit, and then 2020, the whole world changed, and we were on the transplant list and all these kind of things. But he got laid off, basically, lost his job. So I'm like, okay, well, we need to still make income. So I started doing all the research, and we started investing. And he was not working from 2020 until he passed in 2024. But we go through all the liver transplant stuff. He finally gets the call in October 2022, and we have his liver transplant done. And we had, he had treatments for the cancer prior to the transplant, because he had to have a certain amount of the tumors had to be a certain amount. He couldn't have more than 3 or 4 tumors. Anyway, so we fought that, and he was eligible. So we got the transplant done, and he still struggled. He did fine for a few months after the transplant, but then his blood work was still way off. His white blood cell count was really, really low for 6 months, and the doctors were doing all they could. They were just adjusting medicines. And so, but about 6 months after that, it got real bad. And then November of 2023, we found out he had leukemia, and it was therapy induced because of the treatment on the cancer versus going in with the transplant. They told us it was therapy induced. It was nothing to do with family history or anything like that. But they thought that they could really fight it. And so we went into chemo in December. The very next day they admitted us. So the whole month of December of 2023, we were doing chemo. We went through Christmas in the hospital. That was hard. That was really hard. And he basically was in remission after that treatment. So they sent us home. But not a week later, he started running really high fever, and I had to rush him to the ER. And I spent 38 hours at Memorial Hermann Hospital in the ER with him. And he ended up having a infection that he had gotten previously. I think he really had it before he started chemo, but the chemo kind of, it kills everything. So the infection got really bad, and it was what they call fusarium. It's a fungal infection, and it traveled through his whole body. And so it started kind of in his feet. It had one spot on his chest from where the incision was on his liver transplant. Mm-hmm. It started there and then went on his foot. So, all of the specialists would come in. Infectious disease had all kinds of medicines going through his body. But that was the fiercest infection I've ever seen in my life. Mm. It eventually got to his eyes. So he was blind the last 3 weeks of his life. But really what ultimately did it was, I'm going to try not to cry. He, with the heart, he needed a blood thinner to keep the heart from clotting. But then his liver was not, his kidneys were being affected by all the medicine. His liver wasn't well. So every organ was working against each other, but they had to start the blood thinner. And when they did, it caused him to have brain bleeds. Mm-hmm. And he had one, so they stopped everything. And I thought everything was going fine. And we were approved from Pfizer to get this new drug to come in and kill this infection. And then a week later, I was with him when it happened, but he had a massive brain bleed and was sent immediately down to neuro. And that was the last time. They couldn't save him. It was terrible. The most terrible time of my life. The trauma was, and I still live with it. And I still live with a lot of I won't say guilt, but because we talked about it, we talked about, um, he knew that he didn't want to live life like that. And
Yeah.
so he had, the doctors come to me and say, you got to make a decision. I'm like, what kind of decision do I need to make? And they're telling me we have to know right now, are we putting him on, life support? But
Mhm.
it's not he won't ever recover from that.
Wow.
So I said, no, that's not what he wanted. But thankfully his brother was there with me, and I saw his brother coming down the hallway, and I said, oh, you need to talk to him too, because I can't do this on my own.
Right.
It's a heavy burden. It's a lot of weight to carry.
Yeah.
But thankfully the week before he was doing, he couldn't see, but he still had the personality. His personality was still there, even though he had the best attitude. And he had a playlist, and everybody knows his playlist, and it's all praise and worship songs. And he was just in the best spirit. But I had our kids come in because I really didn't know at that point how much longer it would be. And I told them, said, infectious disease is not giving me much hope. I really think y'all need to come just be with him while he's still talking and stuff. And we were hopeful. And he had the best time with the kids that night. And we had a group of friends around us. It was really sweet time. And I'm thankful that my son was there, because he remembers his dad's personality at that point. And then when he passed, it was hard.
Sure.
But they weren't there with me. The kids weren't there with me when he passed. It was just me, which was really hard. But the hospital staff was just amazing.
Yeah. And so, correct me if I'm wrong. I remember you sharing with me that your hubby was really the spearhead of your short-term rental business. Not that you didn't do it together, but he really led the charge.
Yeah.
And after he passed, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you were like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What do I do? Is everything? Talk to us a little bit about how you dealt with that end of the situation.
Yeah, so he was, I was doing more of the managing contractors and doing all the rehabs. But he was handling the day-to-day operations with the rentals and the, all the communication with guests. He would go to the properties and fix whatever needed to be fixed. He was my tech guy. I knew nothing tech. He did bookkeeping. He knew the QuickBooks stuff. So when he got sick, we got behind on bookkeeping when he got sick. And I couldn't care for him and take care of everything else. But when he passed, I had some dear friends that are investors too. And they came and said, let us have everything. We'll take care of all your stuff for you. Your rentals, give us his iPad, his laptop, his phone, everything, so we can take over this and we'll get it all straight for you. And they were amazing. For 3 months, they took care of my properties, and gradually I would go and they would train me on things, get me back up and going. And I still struggle with tech. I still call my friends all the time. Like, okay, what do I do here? How do I didn't know passwords. It was just a shock because I really had high hopes that we would get through that leukemia treatment and he'd be fine.
Right.
And he'd go through a transplant with the leukemia, but we never got that far. And so I was caught off guard, especially surrounding the technology and the bookkeeping. And so, and I have partners, which has caused a lot of, I'm trying to navigate out of the partnerships right now. So, but the bookkeeping was a huge undertaking, and I am very proud of myself because I did get with a bookkeeper, and we had hired a bookkeeper prior to him going into the hospital, and she had been working with us through things, getting things caught up. And Larry was going through the QuickBooks and doing all those things. But Since then, I've got a CPA, and he's really helped me. But like last night, I had a 2.5-hour call with him, and he sits there and just trains me on everything. So now I will never be put in that position again. I will always, always, always know the ins and outs of everything that I'm doing. Even if I'm not the one doing it, I want to understand it. And so I've really made a point to understand everything on the bookkeeping side. So I intentionally did not buy any properties in 2024. He passed in February 2024. So I ended up having to finish a rehab. And initially we were going to sell it. It didn't sell. So I said, okay, well, we're going to have to furnish it. So who not how, I mentally could not do that because it takes a lot to furnish a property. And this is a main house with an apartment, and it was a lot. So I hired a designer, and she did an amazing job getting it designed. And that property is just really doing so well. I'm very proud of the properties that I have, and proud of the team that I've built. And my cleaners, again, they are another couple that I couldn't have lived without. Because when Larry, even when he was alive, they were gracious. But it's a husband-wife team, and Jesse, my Emily's husband, he's calling me. He's like, I can do all the things that Larry used to do. Just tell me what you need.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know what I need. But if you see something that I need, please tell me. So,
Yeah.
so he's my handyman, and I mean, he does so much for me. They both do. They take care of me. So
Awesome.
it's amazing people out in the world, and I'm so thankful for the team that I have.
Yeah.
So,
do you mind me asking if you could go back to when you and Larry were setting things up, knowing that obviously when he passed, you were sitting there scouring to find things, and not because either of you did anything wrong. It was just a byproduct of the way that you operated. If you could have done stuff differently, what would you have done?
And I don't know why when he had his first open heart surgery that we didn't go in and do more of the thing. We didn't even have a will until later, much later. And I think it's just because we didn't want to think about it, but I would say that to anyone out there, have a will, have a trust, do all these things, put everything in order, make sure your properties are in the right LLC, or if they're in a personal name, that the beneficiary is listed out, because it's so much work on the surviving spouse to have to figure all this out. So pay the attorneys. I can't tell you how much I've paid my attorney. It's a lot. CPAs, I mean, they're worth your sanity. Yes, they do cost money, but it's worth your sanity in the end to just have it all structured the right way. When it comes to technology, have something where you have all the passwords. And I had some of his passwords, but not all of them. And we eventually figured out some of them, got them changed. And he had notes in his phone. So we could find some things, but there's just so much. I wish I wish somebody had a checklist for me, like when he passed, like these are the things you need to do. But because when you lose someone like that, and I know that you lost your mom, years ago, but when you lose someone like that, you are kind of frozen.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. I had what you call widow's brain. And I still am in a fog sometimes, but it's a major fog that you go through, and I couldn't function. And so the couple that took over my short-term rentals for me, I remember sitting on her couch, and she was just spit out the words. Tell me exactly what you need. I'm going to write it down. And then you're going to go off this list and you're going to check one off at a time and just be grateful that that you do one thing every day. If you just do one thing every day, you'll get through it. And so we did that. I sat on her couch and we just, wrote things down, and I would go to my list. Okay, I need to do this today. And I eventually got through most of the list. I wish I could go back and find that list now. Yeah, but I've moved since then. So once he passed, I did buy one house. I bought my own house because my son and I, we needed something different. Too many. Yeah.
Sure. Do you mind me asking as well, when you're going through this scenario, and obviously you mentioned, widow's brain, you felt this fog that is so understandable, and yet you're still balancing your W-2 and you're balancing, your short-term rental portfolio, trying to get caught up on all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How did you personally find healing? What did you have to personally do? And I'm sure you're still healing, right? It's not that it's just an overnight sensation that happens, but talk to us about some of the mindset shifts that you had to make in order to function and eventually start thriving again.
And this may not be, you may not even know this, Stacy, but it wasn't until I went to the Live Big retreat that it started shifting for me. I'm sorry. I know, I'm so sorry.
Girl, okay, like
that is really when I really felt, and I knew that I needed to go to that retreat. It took me a long time to pull the trigger because I felt so guilty leaving my son and leaving all the rentals and just leaving in general. I had just gotten back to work and I'm like, I just don't know, but I really felt in my heart I needed to go because there's a lot of stuff that happened at my W-2 that I still resent sometimes because they were just giving me a hard time about being off, and it was bad. But it wasn't until going to that retreat and really diving deep into mindset where I could really start healing. And I remember having a one-on-one with you, and I remember crying the whole time, but I really couldn't remember what we talked about other than the fact that, I know I needed to start journaling, but I'm a better person this year. And that's why I'm like, I can't wait to get back to the next retreat. And I know this was not even part of this conversation, but it's true. Because I really feel like this time around, I'm going to be able to really take more of it in and use more of it now to keep progressing in my life. But it really wasn't until I went on that retreat that I was able to just stop and really, really process what my life was going to be and how I was going to get through it.
Well, that gives me goosebumps. And, obviously, this, how much I adore you. And I am so proud of you because I know that going to that retreat was not easy, from everything you were dealing with in your life at the time. But I also know you were walking into a house, and obviously you and I were connected. So I knew what had gone on in your life. But you were in a house full of, people that maybe you knew some, but were virtual strangers. And that is not an easy thing to do and go be vulnerable with other people. And so I just want to congratulate you for doing the hard things and doing what it takes to put yourself in a better place for healing and for growth. And I am, it sounds very strange to say, like, I feel like I want to just give you a hug right through the computer, but I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, every day is different. And the smallest things can trigger me having a meltdown. It's funny because I just got back from a cruise with, it was a girls' trip, and we had it planned for a while. And, it's fun, cruise, whatever. And we're in the middle of a big party down in the atrium. And they play a Whitney Houston song, I'll Love You Forever, whatever. And it reminded me of him. And I started crying, and everybody's looking at me, and I'm like, and my daughter's there, of course. And she's like, oh, Mom, I'm so sorry. But then the cruise directors, they saw me and came up to me, gave me a big hug, and said, what's going on? Tell us what's happening here. And my daughter told them. I couldn't really speak at that point. But just the smallest things, happen. And the next day they sent me chocolate covered strawberries and cookies to my room. It was the sweetest thing, but small things like that just trigger it.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that other than to say that every day is different. And some days I have really good days. And there are occasional days where I'm just like, I can't even keep going.
Yeah.
And today stop and just have a break.
And somehow you do. And I think that's where it's so easy for that to replay in your mind. Like, how can I keep going? And at the end of the day, you do. And so when you do, you're training your mind. I can get through this. I can.
And I've done a lot of hard in the last year. So much hard in the last year that not everyone knows about. So I'll just tell anybody out there listening. I mean, you can do hard things. Sometimes it's not easy, but you're going to be okay and you're going to get through it. But you do have to take a moment in the mornings. And I've learned this, just by being in your group, being in other groups. I'm in a flipping program as well, coach, and I've been in that coaching program since 2020. And it's an amazing group of women only. And I'm also in a local real estate group that's men and women. And just everyone is so supportive. And your network really is your net worth, honestly. But not only in the real estate realm, but also friendship. You know who your friends really are. And then we have an amazing church. And those pastors have really just taken us in and treated us like family, and they haven't forgotten us. Sometimes you feel like you're forgotten and you're out there all alone, but you're really not.
You're really not.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you about that, because even, the couple that took over your bookkeeping for 3 months, or took over management of your day-to-day, or sat down with you and said, hey, let's build your list. It is often underestimated, the power of your community. And I really believe that you surround yourself with people who not only you can serve, but light you up on the inside. I'm just curious, do you were building your team, and your cleaner and your cleaner's husband said, hey, we'll step up and do things, that were maybe not expected of us before. Do you have a way that you like to bring people into your business as far as hiring people? How do you interview them? Do you have gut instincts about people, or do you go off of referrals? How do you bring people onto your team?
I wish I had a better gut on some of it, because I have had, some that I've brought in, and right now I'm at a spot where I'm like, if you're not serving me, and you're not supportive of me, then I I can't allow that into my life, basically, because I have to keep progressing, and I don't have time for the negativity. I guess is what you want to say. But referrals is a good one. I mean, my CPA came to me as a referral, and this is from being just in these groups, My cleaners actually, they were referred to me from another investor. And I actually got them prior to Larry. They know Larry. They were amazing before he passed, but even when he passed, they were even so much more amazing. But I do try to vet. I do a lot of things on my own too, and I'm trying to really learn to let go. But I just don't want to be caught off guard, not knowing what's going on in my business. And so I want to learn everything in my business before I start hiring out a lot. But my next step is probably going to be, getting some help on the bookkeeping side. But once I learn it, then I'll pass it on. But I want to learn it first so I can train well.
Sure. I also want to ask you about learning things, because this sounds silly, but so often when we're continuous learners, like, we're proactive about learning, but you had to learn things when you didn't feel, number one, probably like you wanted to learn them, and number two, that you were ready to learn them because of everything else going on in your life. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about how you approached learning new things, even when you didn't feel ready.
Well, I had to get my mind right first. And I had to really keep telling myself, okay, you can do this. And so I'll tell you that even at the retreat, my rentals really weren't doing great last summer. I mean, they were booked, but not as booked as I wanted. Going into the slow season, I was like, I've got to figure out how to keep these properties full. But I met with Jillian for an hour and a half. I think we exceeded our time at the retreat, and she helped set up some things in my listing. And I'm telling you, the minute I left, that property blew up. And after that, I started diving into price labs myself, watching videos. I'd find Jake Cohen's videos, and I would sit at my credenza at night. I'd go home from work. I'd sit and work longer, but I put in a lot of hours. But I kind of just dove in. And some of this is a result of me not wanting to go into my grief. So I would just pour it into work. Is that healthy? Probably not. But the gym has been very important to me because it does keep your mind off things by going to the gym. But also just continually learning keeps my mind off of it. And if I'm not busy, then my mind is wandering. So I tend to want to dive in and learn more. Right. Because I eventually do want to leave my W-2 job, and I'm, working towards that. Really.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious if you were talking with someone who may be starting out on their short-term rental journey and maybe doing this solo or with their spouse, what words of wisdom would you have for them?
I would say, to just make sure you have it all set up correctly. Talk to your attorneys, talk to your accountants. Because everybody's situation is different. It worked for us because he didn't have a W-2 job, and so he was, working in the business a lot. But that's not going to be the case for everyone. So I would make sure you're talking to all of those folks, your professional team first, and then just getting as much training as you can ahead of time, especially when it comes to your market. I'll be the first to admit that we didn't always buy right in the right location. But eventually learn your market, and then you know which ones that you need to sell off and which ones that you will hold. And then you have some that you just can't sell off. And so, we learned the hard way, but I would say get with a good realtor in your area that knows the market, and knows where to buy or not to buy. I would,
Yeah. And one that, I always try to share with folks too, if at all possible, find a real estate agent who has their own short-term rentals that knows the industry inside and out. So many real estate agents are working with short-term rental investors, but it doesn't mean that the real estate agent knows the industry.
Right.
Yeah. That's a big difference.
It is a big difference. Yeah. Yeah. And I've had to just learn a lot. I didn't know anything going into short-term rentals. I've learned a lot by doing, and you do learn a lot by doing. You learn what you don't want to do again, and you want to learn, and you learn the things that you want to keep doing. And sometimes it's really hard to go through some of the things that you've done wrong. And I've done a lot of wrong, but we are doing a lot of right now. So,
great. And, I talked about this recently on our accelerator call, that there are going to be seasons in your short-term rental business that are messy. You have growing pains as you expand and evolve your portfolio. And I think it's potentially very overwhelming for people when they experience those growing pains. And it's natural for us to want to just retreat to our comfort zone. And when we push through that fear zone and we push through the learning, we eventually get to what I call the big zone. But you can build internal greatness by taking all those mistakes and putting them, reframing them into your business and making them assets for you and your future, right? By learning from them.
I absolutely agree. Yes. That's the only way to do it.
For sure.
You can't quit. You got to keep going.
Sister. Amen. Okay, girl, I want to move to the lightning round. Okay. So I want to ask you some questions, and I'm just going to ask you to answer with the very first thing that comes to mind. First question is, where is your favorite place to vacation?
Well, where do I want to go, or where have I been?
Where have you been that you loved?
So the beaches are one of my favorites because it's so peaceful there. I just got back from a couple beaches. Cabo, we were just in Cabo. It was so beautiful. So I really like the beaches, and I don't care which one, but the Caribbean is great.
I agree. So I'm doing this interview looking at the ocean. I'm in Myrtle Beach right now, and I love, you know me, I love the beach. However, the Caribbean beaches are like next level gorgeous.
Yeah, they are.
So yeah. Riviera Maya is going to be pretty amazing too.
Oh, I can't wait.
So what's one place you've never been that you want to visit?
I really want to go to Italy, because my family is from Italy. My grandfather moved to New York from Italy, and my dad was Italian. So I really want to go back there eventually.
Amazing.
On my list.
Amazing. I love it. Okay, what's one thing you know now that you wished you knew when you were starting out in the world of short-term rentals?
Who, not how. I can't do it all myself. And so as much as I do right now, I don't want to always do it by myself. And I don't. I mean, if it wasn't for my team around me that's helping me, I could not do it. So you really got to find the right people to help you.
Amen to that. And sometimes, I think it's so important, even though in this season you are still doing a lot yourself, you already have a strategy laid out. You already know that in the long run, you're not going to be doing all those things. So again, kudos to you for being aware and proactive into your future and setting things in motion now that you want down the line.
Absolutely.
Okay, next question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Really just to, and this is over the last year, really, is to just take a minute and breathe. When you're feeling that anxiety come on, that fear come on, that grief come on, whatever, just take a few minutes and breathe. Talk to God, talk to yourself, do those positive affirmations, whatever it may be, but just know that you're a stronger person than you really think that you are, and you can do the hard things. Even though we don't want to sometimes, we can do it. We can.
Yeah. Love it. Last question. What's one thing and or person that you're grateful for today?
Well, one person I'm truly grateful for was my husband, because he put me on a pedestal. He always bragged about me. And even though he was the one in there with me, but he would always say it was me that was doing it all. I'm like, that's not true. You're doing a lot too. And I just remember, him being so encouraging. But now I'm so grateful for my kids and all the people around me, my cleaners, my friends, everyone that stood up and supported us through this trial.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's so important to, even in the hard times, find gratitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much easier said than done, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I know that's in your heart. Like
yeah.
I really want you to know how inspiring you are to other people to watch you, again, even from my vantage point where I've been aware. Obviously we don't live close by each other, so I don't see you on a regular basis, but I see you enough on our weekly calls, and and I know all the hard work you're putting into not only being the best short-term rental business owner, but being the best version of yourself, right? So I just want to congratulate you and let you know that you're an inspiration for everyone else around you.
Thank you. And you are an inspiration, your team. The pods have been, and I don't get to get on every single call, but my pods are great. Just your whole team, your whole staff, everybody is so good at supporting one another. There's just something about that, is having that support behind you to keep you going.
Amen, sister. I am equally as grateful. Like you said, I couldn't do what I do without amazing people around me. So, so good. Sharon, if someone wants to learn more about you, or I know you offer co-hosting services and you support
client.
Where's the best place for them to find you online?
Well, I'm mostly on Facebook because I'm not a young one anymore. Mostly Facebook. I am on Instagram as well. Sharon K Pace on Instagram, and I think Sharon Pace on Facebook. And then glad they can message me, whatever. I will always respond.
Yeah, love it. Thank you for sharing your story and being willing to open up and, again, be vulnerable, because I know that's not easy. And I know that through this conversation, other people are learning things that they can set into motion right now that hopefully prevents them from some of the challenges that you face. So thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. I appreciate you so much. Yay. I look forward to Mexico.
Can't wait to Mexico.